Well, the Roosters did a lot right, but couldn't shake the monkey off the back in the finals. So, with a stack of players leaving, was this the end of an era? This is the season review for the Sydney Roosters. And to break this all down, for me, zero tackle expert analyst Darren Parkin. Darren, they went from 7th to 3rd, highest scoring team in the competition. Just, again, couldn't get it done.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess the key stat, which we'll mention a few times for them, is 1 from 22. And that's the record in the last 5 years against this year's grand finalists in Penrith and the Melbourne Storm. But we'll dig a little bit deeper into that later. But yeah, clearly the number one scoring side in the comp. But the improvement from last year to this year, they scored 266 more points a game, so which is an average of about 25 a week. An average of about 11 per week across the 24 games that they played. So you're looking at sort of 2 tries per game. Marginal defensive climb as well. So huge rise in their scoring power. And looking at a few of the other aspects of their game as well. They improved on the missed tackles front and their aggression, 100 more tackle busts than anyone else in the league, top 4 for tries, running metres and total points. But yeah, throughout the course of the year, beaten frequently by Penrith and Melbourne, and their 2 losses in the finals came by a combined 52 points to those 2 sides. So yeah, and we'll touch on it a bit later on, but yeah, so many of their senior stars and former premiership players departing the club.
Yep. Absolutely. So let's move on to the 2024 pass mark. So heading into 2024, as you mentioned, we knew that there's going to be a big departure coming at the end of this year. So this year did have a bit of a one last chance coming into the season. So how did you rate their 2024 season?
Yeah, it's a tough one. For a side that was top 4 all year and a side that challenged deep into the season, played in a preliminary final, it's difficult to say that's not a pass mark, but at the same time, internally, given the expectations they set on themselves and given that last dance type feel, it's hard to call it a raging success either. They didn't get the ideal job done. At the start of the year, they would have been, their expectation would have been to win a premiership or play in a grand final, and obviously they didn't get to that mark, nor did they close the gap on the 2 sides above them. So yeah, they did a lot right. They improved in so many areas, but I think personally they wouldn't call it a success, even if externally you might.
Yep, absolutely. So let's dive a bit deeper into the lowlights. So continuing on with the lowlights, I guess it is just losing that stack of talent, which is going to be very difficult from here.
Yeah, I mean, they had players that were helping them contend, and obviously players that had won premierships with them back in 19. But yeah, the Tricolours losing Joey Manu, they lose Suali as well, they lose Jared Warry-Hargraves, Luke Keary goes to the Super League as well. A couple of other departures, and one of the key games for them in the season was the loss to the Raiders in the second last round. Now, that wasn't just a frustrating loss, but they lost Brandon Smith and Sam Walker, both with ACL injuries, and the issue with that is it's going to extend into probably halfway through next year as well. So you throw those absences into the group, and then the other ultimate low light that we said was that they just couldn't land a glove on Penrith or the Melbourne Storm. And yeah, 1 win from 22 appearances against those 2 sides, who have been the best 2 sides in the competition since the start of 2020. So since the Roosters won their last premiership, those 2 sides have completely owned them, which is very much unlike them to be dominated to that extent.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds pretty dour for a team that finished 3rd. So let's turn it a little bit into the highlights. So the best thing about the Roosters this year is undeniably their firepower. So nearly scoring 31 points a game.
Yeah, that they could blow anyone off the park on their day, and did quite frequently. Their points differential was the best in the competition. Their scoring was the best in the competition. The amount of players they had hitting the scoreboard was the best in the competition as well. And then probably special mention to a couple of redemption stories. Jimmy Tedesco, who we'll mention again, questions over his future after a rough 2023, but played a blinder of a year. And then Angus Crichton was another who defied the critics to produce a stunning season. So yeah, that there were plenty that put their hand up, and they were a heck of a lot of fun to watch.
Yep, absolutely. So for each of these reviews, we try to highlight a standout player or a most improved player. This time we're going with standout, and as you mentioned before, James Tedesco.
Yeah, I mean, 31 years of age, and when you have a frustrating year like he did in 2023, and you've got a 3 in front of your age, the perception might be that, well, that might be it, or we're going to slow down a little bit. You lose your pace, you lose a few aspects of it. But he responded in the way that great players generally do. Probably had close to, if not the best year of his career. 17 tries. That's the most he's had since their premiership winning campaign 5 years ago. Career high line breaks, career high try assists, had 24 in each of those, and dominated the semi-final. They won against Manly, over 200 running metres, a pair of tries in that game. So, yeah, he led from the front and responded the way that the great players respond.
Yep. Well, if there's one thing we know at Zero Tackle, it's headlines. So for the Roosters this year, big one, obviously, the player exodus. And there's another one here with Trent Robinson meeting Steve Kerr.
Yeah, and I think that the underlining part of the player exodus has been the pressure that it might put on them next year, which is harsh. But if they do struggle early, which they might do, readjusting to a slightly different style of play, different personnel, given their expectation of success, does that change things or put more pressure on them unnecessarily? And I think that's been the elephant in the room a little bit for them, but hopefully people understand that situation. And yeah, I like these stories. I mean, Trent Robinson leaving no stone unturned. The Golden State Warriors in the NBA have been a powerhouse, but they've also been able to regenerate a little bit and stay strong for quite some time. And you often see that in the off-season, coaches in sports going overseas, meeting other sports, be it the Premier League or the NFL, and just having a chat about culture and those sorts of things. So Trent Robinson, not only has he been in regular email contact and phone call contact with Steve Kerr, but flew to California and sat down with him and had a coffee. And I really like that sort of thing, just leaving no stone unturned to get the best out of your group.
Yeah, you'd be liking that as a Roosters fan. Yeah. Now, looking into 2025 and the Roosters pass mark, so it's with all the exodus and a lot of change coming in the off-season, it is going to be an interesting one. I think the mental hurdle of that monkey on the back only getting bigger. How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, they can try to deny that, but I mean, supporters will know that going to those games. Players will know that as well. I mean, the Panthers are the first side in over a century to beat them 10 times in a row. So they're a side with that really proud history, and the Storm have won 11 of 12. So if you're coming up against those sides, and maybe that's where there's a player exodus and having some younger, fresher faces in there that haven't experienced that before, maybe that helps. But obviously those sides are still damn good. So it's a challenge anyway on paper to try to overcome that. But I think all things considered for the Roosters, if everybody takes a step back on the expectations and understands that they're probably unlikely to go 18-6 and finish top 2 given the changes they've had. So I think it's a reset year for them. They're still good enough to play finals, but I don't think they'll contend for a little while, but that's okay. I think they're doing the right things. Yeah,
so finals it is.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps it up for the Roosters and this season review. Thanks, Darren. So, again, going to be a very interesting watch next year, the Roosters.
Yeah, end of an era, but it doesn't have to be for long, so they can bounce back.
Absolutely. So, let us know in the comments if you think that Roosters premiership window is shut. Remember to like and subscribe. We'll be doing reviews for every NRL team, and we've also got a lot of videos looking ahead to 2026 and who your club should be targeting. So, again, like and subscribe and catch all the latest NRL news at zerotackle.com.